It's really an honor to be here with you guys today, especially after this pandemic. So I'm going to jump in here. John Baptist Branam, my great-grandpa, was born on November 6th, 1864, in Lafourche Crossing, Louisiana. 1 year later, in December of 1865, the 13th Amendment was adopted, effectively abolishing slavery. Precise records of people who were enslaved are, of course, difficult to secure. But given that he was a black boy born in the heart of rural Louisiana prior to the 13th Amendment, the chances that he was born into slavery are nearly 100%. My grandma Ernestine, whom I knew quite well, died 5 years ago, just shy of 103. John Baptist Branam was her father-in-law. For many, slavery feels like ancient history that happened to people they don't know. But in my case, I knew my grandma well, and she knew my father-in-law's stories. For me, slavery was only 3 generations ago. When I introduce myself, I almost always begin by sharing that I'm a proud father of 2 young children. Our daughter Cece is 10, and our son Eli is 7. As my terrific colleagues at Get Schooled would likely say, I talk about my kids far too often. That said, as I'm sure is true for most of you, my children are the heartbeat that drives many of my daily decisions, as well as my thoughts about our society, our planet, our past, and our future. Being a parent is like being a counselor, educator, or mentor. Comparable in that you'd likely do anything to help your kids attain social, educational, and career success. I love my children equally, unquestionably. But since Cece is a bit older, she's farther along in her journey, and there's more clarity from her about what she hopes her life will look like. As her story unfolds, 3 quick reflections are relevant, I think, to our plenary's theme. The first is that although she began 6th grade 2 weeks ago, last year Cece was a 4th grader in a public school in Portland, Oregon. At the very beginning of last year, her teacher assigned the students a 4-minute talk about what made them who they are. In her speech, Cece identified several characteristics that made her her, the most significant of which was being a black girl. But it was her description of what that meant to her that I'll never forget. As a young black girl, she said, whenever she encounters a challenge that she doesn't think she can overcome, she remembers her ancestors who were enslaved and their incredible strength to endure despite it all. And these ancestors give her the strength she needs to push forward. The second vignette is that just last month, Cece sat on a student panel for Portland Public's school and district leaders. As much as she appreciated the considerable love shown by her wonderful teacher and school administrators, she said, she believes kids need more rigorous coursework, higher expectations, and more books in our elementary school libraries that tell the stories of being black and brown in America. Black students like her, she remarked, have a responsibility to fulfill the dreams that were denied to their ancestors who were enslaved, and to help right the wrongs of systemic racism that continue even today. And while she's willing to do her part, she also needs white kids, their parents, and white adults to do theirs by reading black and brown narratives. The third story stems from one of those moments that rock you as a black or brown parent. One day this past February, Cece came bursting through the kitchen door as she arrived home from school. As she headed towards me, I could already see the tears pouring down her cheeks. After catching her breath, she shared what had happened. Several girls, all of whom are white, told her she shouldn't write as many papers, or as many that were so long about her black heroes. Also, she said, they questioned whether she was really black enough to be considered black in classroom conversations about black people. As someone who has black skin, black family members, black friends, enjoys and celebrates black culture, feels deeply connected to her black ancestors, and who studied hard enough to skip a grade, these were crushing comments and questions. With just a few words, they tore her down to her core and made her question everything. Was she black enough? Should she work so hard? Maybe her dreams were too big. Maybe she shouldn't read so much, write so much, or know so much. These are the microaggressions. These are the socially acceptable lashings from the metaphorical horse, the legal lynchings of our soul. These are the moments that change the trajectories of black and brown youth across this country. As a father, even as you seethe at the parenting that leads to these kinds of comments by other kids, you work to soothe your child's soul, apply the emotional balm, and rebuild the revolutionary spirit it takes to attain in America as a black or brown person. So what does this all have to do with this year's conference theme? Simply put, it's that I believe America owes at least the descendants of people who were enslaved the right to post-secondary attainment. Let's be clear. America sanctioned the enslavement of black human beings, the lynching of black men, the raping of black women, the denial of black men and women the right to vote, the denial of the GI Bill's benefits for black veterans, the continued mass incarceration of black men, the use by police of lethal violence against black men and women, and the long-standing underinvestment in education in black children, including forbidding them the right to read or write for hundreds of years. We know America will never support reparations. We'll study it, we'll talk about it, but not support it. As evidenced by President Biden's recent Pell Grant loan forgiveness, however, and in light of this year's unprecedented drop in NAEP results that saw reading and math scores by 9-year-olds fall by the largest margins in 30 years, especially among black and brown youth, our country may be in the early days not of reparations, but of state and federal policies that advance the right to post-secondary attainment. This may be possible in part in recognition of the fact that in our very modest efforts to reverse the impacts of enslavement and systemic racism have thus far proved wholly ineffective. The complexities of navigating the college application process, not to mention college success, make it difficult to earn a college degree in America. This, of course, is especially true for first-generation students. And for black and brown youth, structural racism makes attainment even more difficult. Solving the financial puzzle, believing that you belong, navigating the cultural norms, and acquiring essential habits are the building blocks of post-secondary success. My 10-year-old daughter is already learning to navigate and overcome these challenges, as are the youth many of us work with. But there are millions more who we believe have a right to post-secondary attainment and who need our support. This is why Get Schooled exists, to help inspire students to reach for more, to help paint a picture about what's possible, to put lights along the pathway, and to help them see what we see, that they do belong in college, they can persist, and they have the right to attain. As the executive director of Get Schooled, America's only free, all-digital college and first jobs advisor, I'm excited and grateful every day to put my shoulder to this wheel as we push towards college attainment for all, and especially for Black, Brown, immigrant, and first-generation youth. By providing free, research-based, culturally relevant, mobile-first digital content and support, Get Schooled's vision is to make degree attainment possible for every single youth across this country, regardless of the ratio in their high schools of students to college and career counselors. I'm also deeply proud of both my colleagues at Get Schooled and the organizational culture we're creating. In addition to supporting attainment for all, we are embracing an anti-racist culture that actively addresses the healthy balance Black and brown folk have never been allowed to strike between life and work, as well as the wealth Blacks were not allowed to build for hundreds of years. Each of my Get Schooled colleagues, including David, Taylor, Sean, Joy, Eric, Lisa, Kyla, Moses, Dawn, Danelle, Andre, Melissa, and Chris, bring their full hearts every day to our work. For most of us, and our mostly Black, brown, first-gen board of directors, this work is deeply personal. Most of us are first-gen, and many of us struggle to convince our families we should go to college, struggle to feel like we belong, struggle to land our first jobs after college, and continue to struggle to pay back our student loans. Although it's not our debt to repay, we believe post-secondary attainment cannot be fully realized without our employees building a more vibrant future for themselves. To this end, we believe college attainment organizations should seek congruence between the vision and values they hold and espouse for the youth they support and the vision and values they hold and espouse for the people who advance the organization's mission, aka their employees. For hundreds of years, Blacks were not allowed to accumulate wealth, and wealth oftentimes drives college attainment. Since then, Blacks who've wanted to pursue a post-secondary degree have had to work twice as hard, and in the workplace have often had to work for longer hours for less pay. 2 data points are worth noting. First, in 2016, it would have taken 11.5 Black households to equal the wealth of one white household in America. Second, in 2015, only 9% of U.S. kids whose families were in the bottom income quartile earned a bachelor's degree by age 24, versus 77% of those from a top quartile background. Sadly, COVID has likely worsened both of these data points. Despite being a small national nonprofit, we are intentional and aggressive about positively supporting our employees. To this end, we've launched 2 important initiatives. First, our Life-Work Balance Initiative, and second, our Wealth Building Initiative. As Get Schooled strives for congruence, We believe these initiatives lay the foundation for showing young people what's possible, not just in higher ed, but by progressive employers. Here at Get Schooled, we achieve more from our 4-day, 34-hour work week. We achieve more when we help our first-time employee homebuyers make their down payment. We achieve more when we make additional lump sum retirement contributions or student loan repayments. We achieve more from our access to a Black, first-generation certified financial planner. We achieve more by knowing that we can take compassionate leave for any difficult life circumstance that our families or our communities or we experience. In closing, I believe in the right to post-secondary attainment. I believe in the right to wealth attainment. I believe in the right to a healthy life-work culture. This is the legacy, the learning, the linearity, and the love we must embody going forward. Thank you.